So good morning and welcome. For those who were not here on Friday, I'm Sal Cirrincione from iHeartRadio, based out of New York. And a couple years back, I pitched the folks here, Pam and everybody with the cruise, to say, you know, let's do some interviews, give these folks an insight into the artists that they've grown up listening to, and many are who formed the soundtrack for your lives. So enough about me. We're very blessed this morning. We've got 4 legendary acts here to join us. So I'm going to bring them out. The easiest way for me to do this is alphabetical order. So Mark Farner, Neil Giraldo, Tom Hamilton, and Todd Rundgren. Welcome, welcome, welcome. There you go. I guess I can move. Hold it. I'll go here. Wait a minute, where'd my seat go? That's all right.
We need one more chair.
We need, that's all right.
Supposed to be up there.
Guess who set them up and forgot how to count?
We gotta get one for little kids.
So, well, oh, here we go. He's bringing me a chair. It's very nice of you. Thank you. All right. Okay, Todd, now Todd, I'm going to slide you back just a little bit like that. There we go. All right. Well, it's nice to see all of you. I know for some of you guys, this is your first cruise. Todd, I think you said it was your first one. Neil, you too. Tom, first one?
Yep, first one.
So, as Pat said last night, you kind of go to take that step and it's not there. But
Yeah. We do that on dry land as well.
So, how's it been working out? Been working out so far? Good for you guys?
Yeah, I mean...
You have a microphone somewhere there, Todd. 4 microphones.
Alphabetical.
Oh, there he goes. All right. Just for that, you have to answer first.
The hectic part for us was right after we got mustered, we had to go right here to this stage and get set up for a 6 o'clock show. So it was like 4:30 muster, 6 o'clock show, which we're not usually used to. You know, we're used to like a sound check. So that was a little rough. And then then the night we played up on the deck, gale force winds. That was another interesting aspect of it. Today will be ideally something a little bit more leisurely and
Where are you playing today? In here?
no, we're playing in the ice rink today.
Studio B.
I wouldn't play in there, man.
Been there yet?
I mean,
Well, that's a good
yeah,
one.
but
That's the best.
Everybody says that's the best venue.
Sounds the best.
it's actually the most rock venue on the book.
I got one.
Thank you.
We had this venue, the first show, but Todd, they gave us a day off that day, that muster day. They let us kind of cruise a little bit, so it was kind of nice to us. But we ended up here on the first gig, and there's a standing sine wave because they have these subs on the stage here. So we use in-ears. So the whole night, all we heard was. That was a lot of fun. Yeah, that was something. Yeah, and so we were all over the place. We were completely messed up. So we're glad that went.
Trying to get over the top of that.
That was terrible. I mean, I like bass, but you know, Keith Olsen had a great saying for bass. He called it troublesome low tones. That's the truth. What it was on there. So
We blew up the PA about 3/4 of the way through the show.
well, that's the smartest thing to do.
But the audience was amazing. They were totally into the humorous tension of the moment, waiting for the fuse to be switched back on, and so they got it going, but then it blew again 5 minutes later.
Well, you don't want to confuse the player with the instrument. It's like the bass has gotten a bad reputation because of the people that play it.
I'm agreeing with you on that, Todd.
And I'm sure that's not the first PA system that y'all blew up.
Probably, I'm sure. Had a few.
Well, for those who might be saying to yourself, gee, Tom looks familiar, but why is he here? Well, of course, Tom is the bass player with Aerosmith. And
Thank you.
I guess perhaps with all of Steven's antics, he's had enough, so he's kind of looking for a second job, so he's been playing with Thin Lizzy. No, he's actually been filling in quite admirably with Thin Lizzy. And Tom, how did that all come about? Because obviously, you know, your mainstay has been Aerosmith, and
It's the first thing I've ever done outside of my band in all these decades. And but one day my son and I went to see Motorhead, obviously 2 years ago, and Lemmy and I have been trying to kind of meet each other and chat and get to know each other for a while. And finally, we went to see them that night, and they invited us backstage after the show, and he gave us a tour of all his basses and his amps and everything like that. But his drummer, Mickey D, was also there. And then, I don't know how, it feels like it was a year ago. It shouldn't have been that long, but my phone rang, and it was Mickey D on the other end, and he said, hey, they're putting together a reunion tour for Thin Lizzy. Do you want to play bass? You need a bass player. And I said, of course, I'd love to. Really didn't have to think about it long. So I knew I had the time.
so you didn't have to think about it long, but how long did it take you to learn their repertoire and stuff?
Oh my God,
how did you go about that?
I honestly practiced my ass off, okay?
Yeah.
But, I mean, it was 17 songs, and I thought, okay, well, we play about that many songs when we do a show. It'll be the same thing. And, I had a folder, where I had a friend analyze all the songs and write out charts for me. Worked really hard every single day, and then I got to that first rehearsal over in London with the actual band, and I felt like I hadn't even ever heard the music before. There's nothing there. Nothing stuck. So it was actually very challenging, but they're super nice people, really good people.
Would you like to hear my Thin Lizzy story?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I told it last night that this is we have a curse in my family. My father started it. That when I brought a girl home, he would always call that girl the girl that I had before that. So he always had the names wrong. So we're doing the Top of the Pops in London, in the UK in 1980, and they had all these set designs, and each band was going to play like one song and keep moving around. So Phil Lynott was there, and we were just talking, and you were lovely to be here. Yeah, it's great. We're having a great time. This is a lot of fun. He's looking around, and I says, man, they put all these sets up here. I says, I'm glad we didn't get that. That is just horrible. That's a horrible set for a stage. He goes, that's ours. We brought our own. So, of course, I went, yeah, those stars look pretty good. That's a good idea. I wish we had that one. Well, we were good friends. That's how you get stuck with speaking.
Yeah.
And Mark and Todd, speaking of playing with other acts, you two are members of Ringo's All-Starr band.
Yeah.
Todd, you just actually come off the road with them again.
Yeah.
What's that whole situation like? Because not only do you go on those tours to do some of your own material, but you then have to do some of the Beatles stuff, but also all the other All-Starr members. What's that learning curve like?
I thought it was wonderful to be able to learn from the cat that wrote the songs. Like with Randy Bachman. He showed me these chords, power chords, and I went, I'm going to steal that. That's how we get our chords. And it was so good because everybody was, there was no trips. Nobody was, above anybody else. We got to Japan, and Ringo was sitting in the middle, and it was like the Last Supper, like Jesus and all the good people lined up. And this young gal came down front, and she said, Mr. Farner, what is it like to play with Beatle? And I stood up and said, honey, he puts his pants on one leg at a time, just like I do, And so Ringo gets up, and he says, thank you, brother. And he puts his arm around me, because he's a real guy, but he's like 100% of the time, if he puts a ball cap and sunglasses, it looks like Ringo with a ball cap and sunglasses, right? So everybody's always bugging him for autographs, and you know, I saw the thing on YouTube where he says, "No more! Don't send anything else. I'm not signing another thing." You know, it's like he finally got fed up with it. But his heart is so tender and so pure. He's a real good dude down in there. Serious. Proud to be with him.
Todd?
The All-Starr concept, essentially, to be an All-Starr, you have to have had 3 hit records sometime in your career. That's the only requirement. And I was in, I think, the 3rd version of the band back in '93, and then '95, I think, I did another version of the band. And then this recent version of the band has been together for 5 years, which never happened before. And that's because Ringo does not, you know, all you have to do is have those 3 hit songs. He does not require a psychological evaluation, which can trip things up sometimes. Also, as Mark mentioned, sometimes you get somebody who can play the hell out of their 3 songs. They can't play anybody else's song. So they turn the volume down on the guitar and just kind of strum their way through the show. So with that kind of, you know, the only requirement being the 3 hit singles, sometimes you get a, you know, combination of people who should be institutionalized or people that, you know, kind of like their musical growth stopped when they were like 20 or something like that. So it, you know, this particular version of the band was just, you know, the luck of the draw that he got a bunch of musicians that all get together, and that's why we're still together as an all-star unit, and also that we all can and also enjoy playing each other's material.
Yeah, and I just got to say that it was to play with John Entwistle and Billy Preston, who are in rock and roll heaven now, God rest their soul, was a privilege and an honor for me. But Brother John was deaf as a post. I'm not kidding you. And I had to stand next to him. And I reverberated around on that. I was off balance. And my equilibrium was like my inner ear was shot. I had to move away from him to do most of it. And then I'd run in for my background vocals and then go get back. And Ringo says, "What are you doing?" I said, "Man, poor John, he can't hear, and he's just overcoming it with volume, and it's like killing me." He says, "I want him to turn that damn thing down because he's killing me out front," you know. But great people to play with, and
I think that was another bass bashing.
Great experience.
Mark, that was bass bashing again. You got Hamilton next to you. You're a bass basher. Yeah, Mark the bass basher.
I ain't gonna tell you my bass man jokes.
I'm not gonna do it either. Talk to my bass player.
And Neil, for you, you've collaborated with quite a number of people in the studio, but you know, you're always on the road pretty much every year. If given the opportunity, would you like to go on the road? Is there anybody out there you'd like to go out and jam with and be a part of their band?
Well, there's amazing, you know, the musicians around the world, the ones that you know about and the ones you don't know about. There's phenomenal players out there. I mean, you watch YouTube, you're seeing so many young people too. It's amazing. I always thought that in 1978, when I joined the Rick Derringer Band, I was extremely grateful and very fortunate to be able to get that opportunity. And I started thinking of all the other people that didn't get that opportunity, and I have a special place for them. So as far as going on the road to play with anybody, I'll play with anybody. Mark, you call me up, I'll play with you.
Dude.
Todd, I'll come and hang with you, you know that. Hamilton, I'll play with Thin Lizzy. I love Thin Lizzy's. You know, Aerosmith. Hey, you need a guitar player in Aerosmith.
You never know.
Can make it happen.
Let me know when something's available for you.
Were you sweating it out, Todd? Tom, last summer I was at that show in Brooklyn, New York, when Joe collapsed on stage, and my phone starts ringing. They go, "Joe Perry just had a heart attack." I'm like, I'm looking at the stage. I didn't see anybody fall down and collapse while he actually walked back off stage. And he didn't have a heart attack, thank God. It was dehydration and stuff. But how did you hear about that? And I could only imagine what must have been going through you and your bandmates' minds.
I forget how I heard about it, but just in the back of my mind, it didn't feel like what was being portrayed in the press. I could sort of feel that exaggeration response that the press uses to make sure everybody gets really scared and freaked out when something happens. But no, I was worried about him, but I knew pretty quickly that it was not something like that. And I think it was just hyper burnout. I guess they've been doing a lot of touring, a lot of traveling, and not getting enough, downtime. So
Yeah,
you got burnt out, I guess.
A lot of multiple nights. He was part of the Hollywood Vampires tour with Alice Cooper and Johnny Depp and a bunch of other players, Matt Sorum on drums. And for Aerosmith usually works one night on, 1 or 2 nights off, one night on, 1 or 2 nights off to give Stevens' vocal cords a rest. Alice Cooper says he had no idea about this because he'll go night after night after night if he has to or wants to. And I think that's kind of what eventually got Joe pretty much burned out.
Probably.
So.
Wasn't used to that pace. That's the way most bands work, actually. We're kind of lazy that way, but we want to really, preserve Stephen's little 2 pieces of skin in there that makes those noises that he makes. That's the whole show right there. So, yeah, we do. We have a lot of downtime when we tour, but the good part of it is that we can really lay into it when we do play every 3 days.
Well, the rest obviously helps, and certainly he's still able to do what he has been doing.
He's got a third lung. I mean, the guy he's got, his voice is so loud and strong, and he has so much drive and energy. It's incredible, and he doesn't ever acknowledge the concept of being sick. So, he's Stephen is, he will play through anything. It's amazing.
And speaking of a non-stop pace, Todd, do you ever sleep? And the reason I ask this is I kind of went through notes and everything, and I've always known everything you've achieved, but just the stuff outside music alone, I mean, how do you find the time to do all this? Software development, producing your own albums. You go on tour. You go on other people's tours. I mean, it's just nonstop.
Well, I have a kind of an old-fashioned musician's attitude about it, at least regarding the music. I'm not going to get into the computer programming here, but it's like you always feel fortunate to have the work. You always feel like lucky that there's work available to you. The worst thing in the world is when you're sitting around wondering where the next gig is. So you're always booking ahead. You're always looking, to fill in any significant gaps in your schedule. But quite to the contrary, the only way I do get through it is by sleeping a lot. I don't know what the hell I'm doing here right now.
Yeah, I have to say
I would
that.
otherwise be,
Yeah, I do appreciate it. At 10 o'clock in the morning, especially on a Sunday, is an early call for anyone, let alone a musician. So thank you to the 4 of you, by the way. I appreciate it. And Neil, you got quite a few things going on outside of your main job as a musical leader, composing all the music, father, husband.
Record maker, storyteller.
You love the studio,
Yeah.
I know.
Thank you. Yep.
You're working on not 1 but 2 books.
Yeah, I got a couple books I'm doing. Like, the thing that Todd was mentioning about, whether it's software or work or writing. I think when you have all these guys up here, is that when you have a writer or creator mentality, you just want to create things. And, and I'm sure Todd, when he wakes up, he thinks of an idea, boom, and he can create another thing. And that's kind of what I kind of do too. I have this, sickness of a mind that doesn't stop. So, like Todd likes to sleep. I don't like to sleep. I get up at 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock every day, no matter when I go to sleep, because I look at it as 2 nights, and I like the nighttime, so I get 2 nights in every day. You see? So, and there's a great quote from a writer that says, the material you write when you're sleeping is never wrong. So, and it's never garbage. So, I mean,
That's
I just
why I sleep so much.
That's why you sleep so much.
Hell yeah.
Maybe I should start. Try that. But yeah, I do a lot of things. I enjoy doing stuff. Yeah, and I have a couple books that I'm writing, a novel fiction and actually another type of book. And I'm going into film directing as well, and screenplays. And you know, I have a couple films that I'm writing, working on at the moment. And yeah, a lot of things. And Patricia and Linda Perry just wrote a beautiful song called Shine. And it was in tribute to the Women's March, or just for, you know, human interest for the women around the country. Yep. Yeah. And it's a beautiful song, and they came to me, which was kind of odd because I'm not a girl, you know, and they want to have all women. So they said, Spider, would you know, join and get the production thing going and play junk? So I said, yeah. So I tried to stay out of the way and played a bunch of instruments, and the record came out really well, and they played it yesterday during that march. But I just want to say one thing at a political stand on that, in that I've always believed for women, men, children, pets, animals, everyone. Everybody has a right to be here, and everybody's voice should be heard. So I'm not endorsing the fact of anything political, other than, you know, when you label it and you put it into one dimension, it's really not about that. It's about human interest for every single person. And this song
Amen.
shows that. So that's it. That's enough of my political shit. I'm done. And that's one thing I won't go into, politics.
Right on.
Well,
I gotta get up earlier.
speaking of autobiographies and stuff, I'm going to get back to you in a second, Neil, but I want to, with these two gentlemen and then also Mark. Tom, three of your bandmates have written their autobiographies. You and Brad are the only two who have yet to. But you have talked about actually writing a book, but taking a different approach, and I was kind of wondering where that's at and if that was still a thought process that you had.
Yeah, well, I've written a lot off and on over the years, mostly journaling and just trying to remember interesting or, you know, funny situations that have happened or interesting stories. And, you know, most of the books about, you know, rock stars that I've seen or read are about, you know, all the sex and drugs and that part of the job description, which is great. But I've yet to see a book about a band that's really like the story of the adventure of it, and the desire and the dream of it, and how that comes about. I've really read too many books, you know, about rock bands and such. They're just about the lurid, you know, the nasty stuff, you know, how wasted they were, and I'm kind of sick of that, because that's not really, you know, with being in a band, I mean, it could be part of it, and definitely was obviously a part of it for us, was that, but really the main thing is, you know, what's the story of the adventure of you know, the dream of being in your teens, and then 5 years later, all of a sudden, here you are with a record contract, and just the thrill of that, because it really is. It's really been fun. It's been a once in a lifetime experience, and so I don't know. Yeah, three guys in the band have written books, and my attitude for a while was, well, who needs another Aerosmith book? But I don't know. Maybe I could cover it in a sort of different way.
And Mark, you had an authorized biography that you cooperated with a couple years, probably about 16 years ago, if my memory is correct.
Yes.
Have you thought about actually sitting down yourself now? Because I'm sure there's probably things that were not put in the book.
Oh, there was a lot of things that were not put in the book. But From Grand Funk to Grace was more of a childhood, you know, telling about my father being a War II veteran, tank driver in the 7th Armored Division, my mother being the first woman in the U.S. to weld on Sherman tanks at Fisher Body and Flint. And and my devotion to the troops and always bringing them up because lamestream doesn't seem to pay any attention to them. And the families who are, mourning for their lost, that's what that book is about, and leading to, my salvation. But salvation for me is between my ears, because when I had my pacemaker put in, I checked out of this body twice, and I was in heaven. And when I knew I had to come back, I said, shit. I mean, it was that good. I have a quadriplegic son, Lisa and I take care of. He's been this way for 6 years now, going on 7, July 4th. And he's on life support as well, so it's a little more complicated, things to think about. So the next book will include continuation of life, and some of the stories, not the sex, drugs, and rock and roll, but some of the stuff like Todd. Oh my God, dude! Remember Beverly Hills Hotel? The celebration of we're an American band. We had this great big cake, looked like a wedding cake. Bigger than life. Don and Mel and I got this knife. We're slicing through it. Rundgren yells out, "Food fight!" And the food fight ensued. We are in a room that's got velvet curtains all around. This nice, beautiful chandelier. And I mean, the photographers, everybody was in on this food fight. And at the very last, there was the last layer of cake. Rundgren picks that thing up and he sticks it to the ceiling. Yes, you. Troublemaker.
Moi.
Gotta love it. Gotta love it.
Well, Todd, I understand you have an autobiography coming, so if you didn't remember that part, you can still stick it in there if it's not too late.
I'm going back to my room, write that chapter up right now.
But so I understand, though, that you've got an album, an autobiography coming, documentary in the works.
It was a foolhardy commitment to deliver an album and autobiography at once, but it'll be pretty close. I find it hard to write, not because I don't enjoy playing with words. I like writing lyrics and stuff like that, but the idea of writing an autobiography always, to me, felt like homework. And I was just awful in school and never did my homework, so whenever I sit down to write, it's like I have to really impel myself to do it. I don't so much enjoy the process as some other people might, enjoy writing about themselves. But it's also slightly different. It's an experiment in form because, a lot of times people write a book and they mix up the things that happen with, the kind of rosy recollections that they have, which may conflict with the facts, with the emotions that they were going through at the time, and it gets hard to tell what actually did happen. So I've tried to write a book in which those things get unraveled in a way, like every page is 3 paragraphs, and the first paragraph is to the best of my recollection exactly what happened, and then the second paragraph is what's going through my mind while it's happening, and then the third paragraph is, can any conclusions be drawn from this? And that's sort of, hopefully that sense of order, helps guide me through the process, because if I just had to say, like, I'm just gonna write until I reach 180 pages and then stop, it's kind of like that, but it will be out this year. So,
all right.
Exactly when, I'm not sure, but in close proximity to the record. So I'm guessing like April or May or something.
Yeah. You have a title for it?
The Individualist.
Okay. It's actually suits you well. That title suits you well.
It's actually the title of a record that I put out in the
Yeah.
90s.
Yeah.
Right
But it fits for
When
you.
I started writing the book.
While you were sleeping, of course.
Well, Neil, you crossed paths with Todd because you mentioned that he produced the Derringer album that you were on. What was that? What can you recall about that experience working with Todd?
Miserable. No, actually, it was a great opportunity. It was 1978, which is very funny, and not that 78 was funny. It's just that it was a long time ago, and like Todd says, the recollection doesn't always tell the truth, you know. But we went in to do a record called Guitars and Women, and Todd was a producer. He did a fantastic
Co-producer,
co-producer with my good friend and grateful boss, Rick Derringer. And I thought they did a great job. But I play a lot of instruments, and I like to play a lot of instruments. Drums is my favorite thing to play. In fact, Time Machine from Grand Funk from Mark, I used to sit around and play drums to that because I loved the feel of that record was fantastic. Instead of playing the guitar, I was playing the drums. So when we went to do the record, Rick says, he says, we're going to bring in a keyboard player to play on the record. I go, no, you're not. No, I'm going to play piano on this record. He goes, no, we're not. I says, yes, we are. So I ended up playing more piano than I did guitar on the record, which was, you know, kind of different in that respect. But Todd was fantastic. We did it quick. And the best thing I can remember about the record was I was leaving the studio, and I received a phone call. It was my last day, and they said, we didn't need you anymore. We had 8 songs done, and you could leave, and here's a free ticket back to Cleveland. And it got intercepted because I received a call that someone said, there's a girl that wants to put a band together, and they're looking for somebody just like you. I received that call. I never went home, went to SIR, and the rest is history.
Yeah, man.
Thank you. I just want to add one other thing about the books. They're talking about the biographies, which I love, Hamilton. I love the idea of what you're talking about because that journey is really special. And Mark, with your history of your family and stuff and what you go through, Todd, and all your experiences, the thing about the whole sex, drugs, rock and roll thing, yeah, it's going to be in there, and that's it. But it's really not the main heartbeat of the book. The book, it should be about your inner soul and who you really are and how you project that and how you're going to help people when they read that book. That's it, so they can take their journey through life as well by reading those words. That's really important. In the book that I'm writing, in that regards, what I wanted to do was write not an autobiography, but a story about a person, which is me. The story isn't about me. I don't care about that. It's a story about that person and the journey that they went through. It just is a little thing like Mark talked about his father. My father was a carpenter, a Sicilian carpenter, hard-nosed, tough guy with a very sensitive heart. He taught me to be hard-working and work really hard because that's what you got to do in life. You got to work hard to get where you're at. All of us didn't do it just by sitting around smoking weed. Sorry.
That's right. That was.
We didn't do that. So the most
Didn't
important.
hurt.
Yeah, it didn't hurt. Maybe I would have slept more if I did. I don't know. But
Maybe just a little.
it helps a little bit. I know. But so the idea of the book written about like me, like I'm writing it. I'm trying to write it as a novel. So it's a novel versus 1983. I was on stage and all that crap. I try to stay away and avoid that kind of thing. And then lastly, I want to say this is that how each one of us and all the players are on this boat have a story. And everybody's stories are powerful. Every one of you have a story. And all those stories are powerful, and they're all very important. When I was born not breathing. I was basically not here. And I was going to be put to rest. And my name was going to be Nunzio Giraldo. Instead, I became Cornelius, which was shortened to Neil, because the doctor who delivered me, his name was Cornelius Cassidy. And he brought life to me and to my parents, so they shortened Cornelius to Neil. So that's how I have my name. So I've been fighting for every breath that I stand on this earth, and I'm grateful for every minute I'm here.
God bless you.
And that's it. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
And Tom, you're doing well. Your health issues. Speaking of fighting for it and standing here, congratulations. You've had your battles, but you're here, and we're very grateful that we haven't had to. That we still got the original Aerosmith all together, and that you've overcome your issues with throat cancer. So that's wonderful.
Thank you very much. Yeah. remember all the, everybody once in a while has to go to a hospital to get a certain test done, blood test or some kind of thing checked out. And I remember, walking down the hallways of hospitals, and there's that hallway that goes to the right where the little sign says oncology, and you kind of like know that sign is up there, but who really wants to read it? Because you just hope that to hell that you don't have to go down that hallway someday. But I had to, and I had amazing people, and they get rid of it. I had a treatable cancer. I was very fortunate, and so I suppose there's the story there too, I guess. But I don't really, identify with being like cancer survivor. I think some people go through the experience, and then they really think of that as their identity going forward for the rest of their lives, which I really don't. This happened. Now it's not happening.
Move on. That's exactly right. So I want to talk about Todd as a producer here, but I want to throw it over to you, Mark. So what led Grand Funk to actually call Todd Rundgren, who, he had produced a couple albums by then and engineered quite a few?
Well, Lynn Goldsmith, who was publicist for Grand Funk, and came up with all the album concepts from American Band to the Shining On with the 3D glasses and to All the Girls in the World Beware. That was her. But she threw the name out there, Todd Rundgren. He's this, great guy, player, producer. And I like it that he's a player, and working with him in the studio, the cat is like, he's got his feet kicked up on the console. He's reading the book. We're playing our hearts out there. And Todd just, okay, let's do this. I believe, and I have always said that the boy's got musical genius. He really does. And it just comes natural for him. So it's been incentive for me to be able to spend that time with Todd. 2 records.
Right.
Yeah, 2 albums. So it was a lot of time, and when I came down the driveway singing, I went across to the farm, ate lunch, I come back down the driveway, boys are out in the parking lot, and this is out in rural Michigan, and the studio was the swamp. We had to dig a pond in order to get a perk test to put this building up. It was a really swampy area, and the road kind of meandered back down, so you just couldn't look straight down to the studio. And I'm coming down, the sun is shining, I start singing, everybody's doing a brand new dance. And I hear the boys in the parking lot, and they're doing the background. Come on, baby. Todd comes out and said, what is that song? We said, that's Little Eva. We got to do that song. Get in here right now. And we went in. Todd's out there clanging ashtrays, singing the high parts. And this song was great. It was a spur of the moment thing, but Todd heard it and said, it's got to be it. It's got to be a party. We're going to have a party. Come on in. The rest is history.
It says something when you get the same producer for 2 records in a row. That means you did a really good job, because you don't usually do that. Usually
Damn
kick
straight.
around and then come back.
Actually, when I got involved, it was kind of like a special period for the band, because previous to that, your manager was producing your records, and he was not a very good record producer.
Right.
Terry Knight, he was a great promoter,
Oh, yeah.
He promoted the band. They got, the biggest billboard anyone had ever seen in Times Square with you guys on it, which was really impressive, but also pissed a lot of people off for some reason. But I was kind of surprised, because the reputation of the band was they're just a jam band. Any flimsy excuse to just play for a real long time. Which a lot of us were. A lot of us, we were inspired by Cream and stuff like that.
Yeah, man.
We wanted to, to get out there and play every note that you ever heard and things like
Twice.
that. And I was surprised when when I started to hear the material for We're an American Band, it was actually, this was nice taut song structures, none of, flabby long jam sections and stuff like that, which you can do live all you want, but, on a record, you want to hear the song craft. And so I was pleasantly surprised, first of all, at how well they played together, but also, the sensibility in terms of, coming up with the material that they needed at that particular point in time.
Thank you, brother. You're a damn nice man.
I got lucky. But it was one of the most amazing things, because as you say, Lynn Goldsmith, and you had a new manager, Andy Cavalieri, at the time. And they had this master plan for We're an American Band, and it was scheduled down to the split second. What had to happen when the record single was going to be released, when the album was coming out, all of that. And we knew that We're an American Band was going to be the first single. We went to Criterion Studios down in Florida. I think we did the track the first day. The first afternoon we were there, we did the track for We're an American Band. We finished it off the next morning with a couple of overdubs and vocals and stuff like that, and went immediately into the mastering lab they had there at Criterion Studios and cut the single and sent it to the plant. And the thing was, in those days, you counted pre-orders as sales.
Yes.
For the Billboard Top 100. A week later, we're still in the studio recording the rest of the album, and We're an American Band has already entered the top 40. It was like, this was the most incredible gamble, ever as well, because like saying, we're going to release a single before we even finish the freaking record,
Yeah, man.
So it was the very first thing we did was record that single. It went to the plant, and then we went back and finished the rest of the album, and we opened up Billboard a week later, and there it is in the top 40. So we knew that, something was happening.
Good. And the first 100,000 LPs were yellow vinyl. And the ad slogan in Billboard and cash boxes, we're shipping it gold. Little play on words, didn't hurt.
I think I had the red vinyl Nas record.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good one, yeah. Yeah, red vinyl Nas. I still have that. That's a beautiful record.
Was there was there pressure then after the meteoric rise of the single to then, okay, we got to really up the game here to make this a solid album and not just fillers and stuff?
No, I mean, we already, I had met with the band. They played a lot of the material for me, and so we kind of knew what we had and what we had to accomplish in the time allotted, and which wasn't a lot of time. I think the whole project beginning end was probably 10 days max.
Yeah,
something
max.
like that. Track a day, more or less. And
Was Bill Simzik there then? He had to be.
Bill was not the engineer.
He wasn't.
Was that Shelly Yakis?
No, I think it was just, I tended to, see, I started out actually as an engineer producer. It started when I was in the NAS. See, that when we first started in the NAS, we thought the producer was the guy who created the sound, because George Martin, nobody knew who a producer was before George Martin or what they did.
Right.
But there was a big difference between like a George Martin and a standard producer. We got a producer for our first record who essentially was a standard kind of old-fashioned music business producer. He thought his job was just to make sure we didn't go over budget. And so he sat in the booth reading the trades all the time, and if he heard something terribly out of tune, he might suggest it, but otherwise, he didn't make the record sound the way that we wanted. So by the time we got to our second record, I said, I'm going to produce it. And when it got to the mixing, my hands were all over the mixing board. So by the time I got out of the NAS, I was already kind of a little bit proficient at the engineering. So most of the records that I produce, I also do the engineering. And the engineer winds up being a tape op. So,
Second engineer.
so we weren't going to get like, a premier engineer anyway. I was going to do most of the engineering. And when we went to the Swamp to do the second record, I did all the engineering for that.
Right
We had
on.
no engineering.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's good. Mike Chapman told me once, who was a phenomenal producer, he said, know a little bit of everything. And it is true, like Todd was talking at, the engineering part, what better way of getting the sound you want than the twist the knobs and putting the mics out there yourself? I mean, that's just how you learn, and that's really when you get what you really want. Because, I've had people like that before. They just sit back there and they go, oh, you want to do another one? I don't know, Sure, okay, we'll do another one, so that's kind of how you fall into that thing, and it works, yeah, works well.
Well, speaking of autobiographies, Robbie Robertson just published his, and he writes very nice words about you, Todd, and the engineering that you did on the band's Stage Fright album. So,
It's an interesting project because if you go back and look at the album jackets or whatever from most of the band's records, there's no producer's credit because they actually produce collectively, which can be a problem. When you've got like 5 guys and they all have to be satisfied with the end result, it can take 4 freaking ever, And, we mixed the hell out of Stage Fright. We mixed, they had an agreement with Glyn Johns. They were going to let him mix an album for them. So they sent me to England with all of the master tapes. I was in one studio mixing, and I would take half the reels and I would mix in one studio, which I hated because there were speakers that I wasn't familiar with. And Glyn Johns would take the other half of the tapes and he'd mix versions of it, and then we'd swap the tapes, and I came back. And then they weren't satisfied with all of that either. So then we started mixing again at Bearsville with the 5 of them, 5 opinions and things like that. So I recommend getting a producer. Next.
and speaking of recording, Tom, will we see another Aerosmith album? There's been some talk that it could happen. I think you guys would like to do one. Your last album was a solid album, music from another dimension, but I guess, with the music industry being the way it is today, it probably didn't lead up to the expectations that you guys had. And there's talk that this next tour, Arrow Verdurci Baby, is the beginning of the end for the band in terms of touring, although it may last a couple of years. So where are things at there?
We don't know. We got this idea, that we're getting to that point where we should probably do something called a farewell tour, because you never know, it could be. But I don't think in our hearts, in my heart, I can't fathom not responding to the call if my manager or somebody calls and says, hey, they're dying for you to go to Southeast Asia and do 20 shows. There's no way I'm going to say no, unless I physically can't do it. There's so many exciting things that are opening up, even for a band that's been together as long as us. Playing in these countries in Eastern Europe, and we're starting our tour in Israel, and we hate to miss stuff. So I can't see us ever really stopping completely. We might not do conventional 18-month tours, but I just can't imagine hearing that phone ringing and saying no, when somebody comes up with something really interesting on the other end. So we're going to call the tour Aero Verdurci Baby.
Arrow Verdurci, yeah.
And I'm thinking we should call it Aero Verdurci Maybe. But, as far as another album, I would love to do another Aerosmith album. It took us years and years to get everybody to want to go back in the studio for this album that came out a couple of years ago. But we made an album, and we made a lot of mistakes. But the thing about mistakes is that you learn so much from them that the next time you get success, if you're paying attention. So, this is just me talking. I would love to go back in the studio and do another Aerosmith album, but we'll see.
And Mark and Neil, let's start, Mark, with you. I know you've had some new music bubbling under. You did do a song the other day the other day, a couple of years back, talking about your love of dancing. I mean, you see this guy on the stage. He dancing, I think, was way before you were ever a musician, correct? Didn't you?
Exactly.
You and your sister used to be in dance contests.
Yes, and we used to go to the National Guard Armory and win the dance contest because we practiced at home. You know, my mother showed us how to do that, you know, that boogie thing, and then I whirled her around. Dancing is part of it. As far as getting back with Grand Funk, I had been trying for the last 12, 15 years to talk those guys into just doing it for the fans. You know, put all the bullshit aside and satisfy the fans. But that doesn't seem to be a priority there. And it's kind of a sad situation because I wrote and sang over 90-some% of that music, and I don't get to use the trademark. You know, I was in federal court because those guys took me to federal court, put a permanent injunctive order against me, and it's kind of, you know, I had to get to the place of forgiveness in my heart in the first place because that shit will eat your lunch if you don't. You know, I'm serious. But I would, for you all, I would get on a stage and play with those guys.
Any solo recordings that you may do? Or?
Yes, I've got like 4 in the bag right now. And instead of releasing an EP, we're talking about let's just, you know, do a whole thing. Let's do a whole CD, a whole LP, a whole damn thing. You know? So we're working on it.
And Neil, for you, I mean, you're always making music, so I don't know if there's anything in the cards. Even for your, have you ever thought of doing your own?
Well, no, not really, because I always felt this was my band, our band. So it.
Well,
I
it is.
really-
It
yeah,
is, but you know.
I never thought. Yeah, I
But
don't.
you can also sing. I mean, you're.
Yeah, but people have mentioned it before, but you know that's I don't know. It's a commitment. I don't think I'm ready to make. I love what I do. I don't know if I want that much focus on me. You know, I don't know. I'm not that crazy about that. It's all about songs and stuff. I'm doing a record with a really good friend of mine, Scott Kepner. I call him Sonny Buck. He used to be with the Dictators and the Delords. And we have a little thing we call the Paradise Brothers. We're making a bunch of racket with that. And then I thought about Patricia and I doing a little thing and call ourselves the Calhouns or something and make some racket without anybody knowing it's us. You know, and then, you know.
Cat's out of the bag.
Yeah, I know. I'm not going to use that name. That's why I threw it out there. I won't tell you the real name. And then, I don't know if y'all want to hear some more music from us. You can let us know, you know. Yeah. So, yeah, there's a bunch of stuff I'm doing. You know, in 1980, when I moved from New York to Los Angeles, I had a studio in my house. And from that moment on, I've always had a studio. So I live in the studio constantly. I love to make racket. I walk around, play drums, but you know, all kinds of noise everywhere I get. So I love to create. So if something comes out of that that's worthwhile, or if Mark wants to stop by, or Tom wants to come and hang a little bit, write something, have some fun, yeah, you're all welcome. Just come to Mel. Oop, I can't tell you where I live. Okay. Yeah, you already know anyway. You motherfuckers know everything.
Aren't you guys?
More than we do.
You guys ever run into each other? Don't you live on Maui and Maui? Don't know.
I live on the island of Kauai.
Oh, Kauai. Okay.
So, yeah, people say, "Oh, you must know." No.
I haven't seen Todd in years.
Might as well be like East Coast and West Coast, you know, between like Kauai and Maui. You know, it's there's ocean in between there. So you don't
Takes a
accidentally
flight,
run
right?
into other people. You have to have a reason to go to the other islands.
Exactly. Yeah, we have a place in Maui too. And we always say, "Oh, doesn't Todd live in Maui?" No. And you know, don't you live on Kauai? No. You know, they do that. They just pick an island and think you all live there. You know, one of them. Even there's 4 or 5. You know.
Just to know that nobody lives in Oahu.
No.
Oh my God.
No.
That's true.
It is true.
We're running short on time here, so I just want to quickly go down the line. Charity work is something near and dear to all of your hearts, and Todd, I'll start with you. Your Spirit of Harmony Foundation is. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, we just Actually, just before we came here, we did a little benefit in New York City for the Spirit of Harmony. This was actually, the foundation was actually inspired by my fans. We were doing a fan camp in New Orleans a couple of years ago, and the fans wanted to do something for the city. We weren't actually in New Orleans, we were about an hour outside on the plantation. And so they collected some money together, actually $10,000. They collected extemporaneously in the few days that we were there. And we found a program in the lower Ninth Ward that had, suffered the loss of facilities and instruments and stuff like that in Katrina. And it was all, they all played nothing but string instruments, violins down to, up to or down to whatever, the big double bass and stuff like that, but all strings. Which, when you're first learning how to play the violin, it's the most awful, awful sound, And so we enjoyed the idea of it maybe more than we enjoyed the actual music, but everyone got such a great feeling from this, the idea that we helped this program along, that they said, we have to do something permanent. We like that idea. So they came to me and said, you need to have a foundation with your name on it. And then we tried to figure out what it would be about, did some research, and finally decided that we don't want to be a kind of an endowment organization. We're an advocacy organization, and what we advocate is early music education for any student who can possibly do it, because part of our research revealed there's a program at Northwestern University that's trying to figure out exactly what does music do to the brain, and music education, how does it affect the brain. And they discovered that if you give a young kid, while they're still in the developmental phase, while their brain is still developing, if you give them 2 years of instrumental education, it causes permanent changes in the way that they interpret sound that lasts for the rest of their lives. So even if you give up playing the instrument, that music education that you had when you were young is giving you benefits. Like, for instance, you're able to pick out a single voice in a crowded room better than someone who hasn't had the music education at an early age. It has to be at a formative age for it to have these effects. So what we're trying to do really is give anyone who wants to talk their local school board into reintroducing music programs, especially at the elementary school level, to give them the ammunition they need to make that argument. And at the same time, we have a database of programs that have particular needs, and we try and pair them up with people who will satisfy those needs, which isn't always money. Sometimes they just need guitar strings, or they need sheet music or something like that. And, we'll go to to Dario or something like that, and they'll donate guitar strings directly to that program. Right. And that's so that we can do the minimum amount of fundraising ourselves. We don't want to be fundraising all the time. We think this whole thing has to be local. It has to be local people advocating for the music programs. It has to be local people supporting those programs when they are existing. So that's what we're about.
That's great.
Right on.
And Tom, you have supported numerous charities. As a matter of fact, this man will get dressed up as Queen Elizabeth and numerous other celebrities for local Boston charities. He does, I believe, is that for the Improv or something that you do yearly?
There's an organization in Boston that they've been around for years, and they have this troupe of actors that go into schools in the inner city where there's a lot of danger, a lot of problems, and get a bunch of kids in a room and act out situations that these kids might find themselves in, and then stop the action, and the kids will come up with ideas about what you can do to get out of that situation or avoid it the next time, so that you don't get in these really sad terrible, violent situations that kids get into. So we started this thing where every year we put on a play that's a comedy, and we get all the mayors in it and all the local sports figures and actors and luminaries from Boston will all get together, and they'll be given a part in this play. This is a satirical play that we write every year, and it's very funny, and it's raised a lot of money for this organization. And then there's another one called Music Clubhouse, and that's where we've run into about I think about 12 boys and girls clubs at this point, and we set up a room with guitars and keyboards and drums, and we even have little recording rooms with a control room, and kids can come there and they can either just hang around and do anything music related, or they can actually go in there and there are people there that will give them lessons and bring them along, and it's amazing how many of these kids come in there and they're really serious about it. We didn't really expect that. So that's a really exciting one. To see these young kids developing musically and knowing that at some point, one of these kids is going to pop out with a hit record someday. And I'm looking forward to that date coming.
That's great. And Mark, your charitable work over the years knows no end. What's currently on your agenda there?
Well, this cruise for the Native American, giving the money to reservations that really need it. In my bloodline, I'm part Cherokee, and in 2009 I was given the Cherokee Medal of Honor, and I just reverend that. But the Cherokee men esteem their wives to be equal with themselves. This is how Lisa and I have lasted 39 years of marriage. And the world is begging for balance. The world is begging for balance, and we need feminine energy for that balance. And that is part of my quest, and also breast cancer awareness. I have several relatives who suffered through it, and we see what goes on in the world. But to continue for the Vietnam veterans, because Grand Funk did 3 sold-out shows, Madison Square Garden back in '72, I believe it was. And we started 7 Phoenix houses in New York City, which were treating returning vets who were hooked on heroin. And the Vietnam veterans have been my heartbeat for this boy. And so I continue. They asked me to come and play my song at the 25th anniversary of The Wall in D.C. And I said, well, are you going to have a stage and lights and things? Like, oh yeah. They just said, bring an acoustic guitar. I said, dude, if you're going to have that set up, I will bring my band. So we put on a show for the Vietnam veterans at the Wall at the 25th anniversary. And the Canadians and American veterans were there, and the tears were flowing when we did American Band, and then we did I'm Your Captain, because each veteran was sitting offshore someplace, fearing for his life, but clinging to the words closer to home. That's where they want to be.
And Neil, again, you and Pat do a lot, and most recently we spoke not long ago about this song that you did for your beloved Cleveland Indians, Lifting the Curse of the Rock, with the proceeds going to various Cleveland charities, your hometown. So what do you have going on there?
Yeah, well, first of all, that was a last minute thing, and holy crap. I like the Cubs, but I don't like them that much now. Sorry. If there was any team that was going to win, it was going to be the Cubs. It's all right, hold tight. The song still has life. Well, I love giving back to the city, my hometown, of course. There's a couple other things that I've been involved with. One is the OSA, the Oakland School of the Arts, which is a school that's funded by the government in the city of Oakland, and it's for all the students. You could be inner city. You could come. You can get in it any way you can by an audition. And those children that come in there, it's fabulous to see how they grow. My heart goes out to all the young people, because I don't want to see a lost life because somebody didn't pay attention to them and didn't give them the opportunity to do those things. The Oakland School of the Arts, my daughter and my future son-in-law bought us tickets to the Oakland to the Warriors Cleveland Cavs game in Oakland. Yeah, and in halftime, I didn't realize it was my singing girls and kids, boys and girls that were from the OSA school, did the halftime, and they tore the place apart. They played better than the Cavs did, I can tell you that. Well, they'll be there anyway. But it was really, it was great to see them on the big stage, and there's a lot of people that donate a lot of money for the equipment for the studio. They put a studio in my name there, so I'm going to go up there 4 times a year and do seminars and help them out because they're fantastic. Another thing I do is called Spider Sports Camp, and what that is, it's getting children from all areas of life and all different, whatever they are, they can come, and it's a unity between sports, athletics, and music. Because I truly believe that if you want to go forward and have a better life, you really need to be physical. You need to be in good shape. And a lot of kids think, growing up, like they look at the bands and they think, wow, I just want to be like them and I want to get high and I want to do this. That's not the case. We don't do that. We pay attention to what we're doing here. And the idea is when you have a child and you give him a football and he starts throwing a football around, then right after that you go, okay, sit down and play that piano, or sit down and play that flute. Let's get that going. So there's a combination of that I like to see, and that's what Spider Sports Camp's about. And then lastly, I started a supplement company called Your Health 11. And it's I got a brilliant formulator, and we're going to do nonprofit stuff, all for all people everywhere, and it's all natural, beautiful stuff. And there was one situation that hit me hard in 1980. We were living in Southern California, and we went by a Gelson's. I was going to get the paper. Remember, we read papers. So I went to get the paper, and I was driving back to my house, and I saw Gelson's Market, and they were throwing away fried chicken and all this food, dumping it in a dumpster. And I stopped, I pulled, I go, why are you throwing it away? I said, well, we can't sell it. I said, well, why don't you give it to somebody? We can't. Now, I'm going to tell you this. I don't know any homeless person that ever called an attorney up after he had a piece of chicken that wasn't good. You know what I mean? That's just crazy.
Yeah, man.
So you're throwing food away that can help people. So we're moving in that direction as well.
Well, unfortunately, it is time to. We have to wrap this up. But before we do, I'll point out that Tom will be on stage with Thin Lizzy on the pool deck today at 2:30. Todd will go down to Studio B at 4:45. Neil and Pat Benatar will be on the deck stage at 5 o'clock. And can't think of a better way to bring us home than Mark Farner on the deck stage at 8 o'clock. I feel like I'm up here as a member of a law firm, the firm of Farner, Giraldo, Hamilton, and Rundgren. Gentlemen, thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Sal. Thanks for being here. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, everybody.